walked away when the fire got near. Some stayed close, but their hearts weren't clear. But I kept walking through the smoke and flame. Truth on my lips, I don't play this game. I'm still drawing lines in the sand, with the Bible in my calloused hand. Let them talk, let them doubt who I am. I just follow the voice of the Lamb. No throne, no fame, no need for clout. Just a word in my bones and a war to shout. They twist the scrolls, try to blur the plan, but I ain't budging, I know where I stand. They want the crown but deny the king, build their house on a puppet string. But the kingdom don't come with lights and gold, it comes with fire that breaks the mold. I'm still drawing lines in the sand, with the Bible in my calloused hand. Let them talk, let them doubt who I am. I just follow the voice of the Lamb. Let them draw their circles, I'll draw the line. Let them mock now, truth wins in time. We ain't alone though, the path gets tight. The remnant don't bend, we rise and fight. I'm still drawing lines in the sand, with the Bible in my calloused hand. Let them talk, let them doubt who I am. I just follow the voice of the Lamb. Let them draw their circles, I'll draw the line. Let them mock now, truth wins in time. We ain't alone though, the path gets tight. The remnant don't bend, we rise and fight. And that's the line they never want to cross.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Truth Unfiltered, and this is Lines in the Sand. I'm your host, The Rev. A lot of you that know me in the real world know that my real name is Joshua, but for the internet world's concerned, as far as that's concerned, people have always called me Rev online. It's just a name that I've kind of acquired over the years. Look, I owe you guys an explanation and an apology to the ones that did reach out and I didn't reach out back or was able to get back in touch with them. Over the last few weeks, I guess things have been kind of rough over here. Work has been really slow, and because work has been slow, finances have been low, and when finances are low, you end up having to alter your daily routines and whatnot. And for me, money is a weird topic. I know a lot about it. Unfortunately, I know a lot about money. The problem is that a lot of people around me and in the world around me, they don't really know a whole lot about money. But for me, growing up, money was always a taboo topic. You didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about how much you made, how much someone else is making. It's just a thing you didn't brag about. And so whenever times get tough, it's natural to want to reach out and grab a lifeline here and there. And one thing I never wanted to do is I didn't want to be on here trying to really focus on the Bible study, the lessons that I try to present to you guys, and the entertainment and all that, while at the same time I'm constantly would be focused on my financial drought. And within this community, you guys are such a blessing and such an amazing group of people that I didn't want to share that burden with you guys and have you guys feel guilty or feel like, obligated to maybe help me out in that situation. So for me, it was just better to pull back. There were other factors as well. The little panda dog that we had planned to get to Brother Richard, that obviously didn't work out, but I had that little puppy here, and it's difficult to place that dog in on my property somewhere without me watching her, so she doesn't tear up something or go off missing or anything like that. So I have to keep her inside, and I can't keep her out of the cage or the kennel the way I can my big dogs. And so it would have been constantly listening to her yap, 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 yap. And so I needed to really get her adjusted to my routine in my life, but at the same time, prepare her to move on. And eventually, as she did, I did find her a decent and really good home. So that little puppy is now gone, and I am now puppyless. Outside of that, I've been fighting old demons. I listened to Brian from Demon Erasers a good bit, and I even thought about reaching out to him. When it comes to the spiritual realm, we don't really understand a whole lot about it. We don't know much about it because for obvious reasons, we're not taught anything about the spiritual realm. But that's something that's always fascinated me. It's always interested me. And when it comes to demons and possessions and stuff like that, I believe that is real. The thing is that I don't think it's real in the same way that a lot of people might think of it. Movies kind of dilute the truth a little bit while at the same time exaggerate it. So it's really difficult to formulate a necessary foundation or framework in our minds whenever we're reading scripture, doing research, or studying anything in particular, because it's all of that, all of the things that we have hitting us every day from birth through our childhood, through school and education. All of that is designed to make us doubt scripture. It's to make us read it, but not see what's right in front of us. It's designed, everything around us is designed to create biases. And I don't remember which episode it was, but it was just recent. I was I had a chance. I was listening to Brian talk, and he was explaining how that a lot of times when these entities interact with us and the world seems to be attacking us, it's because we're manifesting this stuff, so to speak. And in a way, he's right. You know, you are ultimately responsible for all the consequences that correlate with every choice we make. It's just hard for us sometimes to accurately see it like that. And the reason I know it sounds like I'm just kind of rattling on there, but what I'm referring to in all of that is, for me, I've wrestled with demons my entire life. I've always had people that were supposed to care about me that didn't necessarily care about me, the same as all of us have a childhood. But the thing is, within that, I always look back and analyze all the situations I've ever gone through. So like when something bad happens in my life, I'll think back on it over and over again. How did that happen? Why did that happen? What caused that? And you'll always find reasons. There will always be, well, it was because of greed, or it was because of selfishness, or it was because of this, or it was because of that. And there will always be these multitude of reasons. But that was never good enough for me. I'd always look deeper. I'd see, there's got to be a source, a root cause for all of this. And really, it stems from above. It stems from what begins in heaven. As above, so below. What this has led me to is it's led me to trying to figure out, understand, and discover how the spiritual realm works. Like what happens to us when we no longer breathe air into this body. I think that's a fear for a lot of people. It's a fear when it shouldn't be a fear. Jesus even tells us that, we're not supposed to fear death, but we do. And it's whether we mean to or not, we're constantly in fear of what comes next. When it comes to the little season, the understanding of all of that, especially for people that are new to it, it hits you like a freight train, and it's loud and powerful, and you want to go out there and tell everybody, but it becomes a point where it's like, well, what else is there to discover and unravel? And for me, I was wrestling with that, and I noticed that it just seems to me that understanding the truth isn't nearly as important as doing something about it. The problem is, it's hard for us to do something about all the lies, the deceptions, and the wrongs in this world, because there are too many people in it that don't necessarily believe their wrongs are wrongs. Their idea of right and wrong comes from what they understand the world to be and how they understand their position and place in it. What comes next? Well, after we're judged, or after Jesus either comes back or he doesn't come back, or he comes back within our lifetime or he comes back after our lifetime, there's a war, not a war. I mean, what's going on? I mean, if you turn on the news or the television or practically anything, you're being bombarded with World War III. It's on the horizon. Iran is already deciding to get out of bed. You got those Israeli people, you're not really even supposed to talk about them. Everybody's afraid to say anything about them because, good Lord, you say anything about the Israeli people, you might be labeled as anti-Semitic. and all that other mess. Of people that are pretending to be another people. And it's obvious. I mean, 90% of the world is aware that they're not who they say they are. Yet we go along with it. We continue to watch it as it unfolds and goes by us on a daily basis. What can we do about it? Well, there's not really a whole lot we can do about it. All these things have to happen. All the bad things have to happen. All the evil people need to be as evil as they're going to be. And all the good people need to be good and do all the good that they're going to do. All that goes on, and yeah, there are limitations in what we as an individual or as people can do to change and right these wrongs that are going on in this world. Ultimately, our goal and duty is to the scripture. It's to the word, and it's to the service of Christ. And a lot of people fail in this. I sit back the other day and I was just re-listening and watching this old fella talk about his experience in the afterlife. And his take on it was not very many people made it into heaven. And I hate hearing stuff like that, but it's true. And it's sad because at any given moment, you can go out on the highway, immerse yourself in traffic, surround yourself with people from all over the country. And if you individually walked up to any one of them, you'd have a decent conversation, potentially. And most of them are going to claim they're Christian. And they all love Jesus. When you gather them all collectively, they forget all that. And more importantly, they fail to realize that, yeah, they do love Jesus, but do they know Jesus? Do they know what Jesus said, what Jesus meant, what Jesus wanted? Do they really love Jesus? Or do they love the version that they've crafted of him that's been taught to them? Do they love their version of Jesus? Or do they love the version of Jesus that the Bible talks about? And that's where I get, caught up with this little season stuff. And it's like, man, if people would just listen, pay attention. And it's funny saying that when I'm the one talking. And funny thing about that is, speaking with my brother about this the other day, I'm 42 years old, and I think I've spent 42 years almost with my mouth shut listening, because I think that's all I've ever been told to do. You need to shut up and listen. You ask too many questions. Just shut up and listen. So when you shut up and listen, after a while, you get tired of listening. I think now it's time for other people to listen, and not necessarily listen to just me. There are a lot of people that are talking about the topics that we're talking about in this channel. There are people talking about the little season all over the place now. But it's not just talking about the little season that's important. It's the message behind the entire gospel. It's your awakening moment to prepare yourself for what comes next in your life, whether it is Jesus coming out of the clouds in a form of some type of alien swarm, or whether it's passing away in the night while you're asleep and waking up in heaven. Whatever your place is in reality, all of that's going to come from the decisions and the choices you make. One of the demons that I used to fight when I was in my youth was the spirit of suicide. And I don't want to scare nobody with this topic, but it's one that doesn't get talked about enough. I had this demon, I feel like, at least that's what I used to call it, that while I know in my heart of hearts that this is wrong, I'm not supposed to do this, my brain would tell me every day, this will be better for you. This will be better for you. And so while I fought that demon all throughout my teenage years, as I got older, I believed that I had gotten rid of him. But the truth is, those you don't get rid of those demons, those spirits, whether they're cast out of you or not. They still exist, and they can attack you and attach to you through various ways. You know, usually it's through people that they're attached to that you're associating with. Other people, it's their own doing. And for me, it's living inside my own head, being stuck in there. Not being able to share the things that I want to share for fear of someone getting upset or someone lashing out or retaliating. I sat there and listened and reviewed my Lines in the Sand episode 1. Went back and read through the comments and go, there's a lot to talk about on this subject, within this content. But there's a lot of stuff I could talk about that get a lot of people unalived. It's a thing that I'd have to wrestle with and dwell and deal with. It's easy on my end from the outsider perspective. When you're not the one dealing with the concern and the worry and the fear of what could happen as a result of your choices. So say, for example, I'm watching you talk about taxes. That's great for me until you stop posting. And then if you stop posting, why? And so the point is, that's a fear that I would have. I don't really have that fear, though, really. That's why I don't mind talking about old BB and Netanyahu, all them folks. One, I'm a small fish in the media world. It might be a while before they pick up on my content or anything that I have to say anyways, but regardless, I don't care if they cancel me or not, or visit me or do whatever they want to do to me. It's not going to change what I'm supposed to do and what I need to do. And that's where it becomes like a Jonas thing for me. I think I've said this before, that this isn't something I planned on doing in my life, but I'm here doing it. And I've realized over the last few weeks that even when I was financially struggling before, as long as I was doing my work, or I say my work, the work that we're supposed to be doing, serving God, in the way that I was, I didn't seem to have that many worries. Pulling back, I pulled back initially the first few weeks because of work, and I was on call. But after that, it became easier to stay away. And I don't know. I guess I feel like maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm like Jonas. I need to hop back on the air, hit that live button, and start talking and running my mouth again. The point is, every day is a struggle. It's a struggle when I wake up. I got to go to work. I go to work, and why am I even doing that? Why do I do that? Why do I have to do that? Got to drive throughout all this traffic and around all these people who are behind the wheel of 1,000-pound vehicles, not caring one bit that I'm right beside them or right behind them or riding around them, or that we're all driving at deadly speeds. I got to be out here around people who are focused on themselves all the time and in every choice they make, and it's easy to see. I get overwhelmed with all that, and I'm like, man, you people need to wake up. I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of being the only one out here that has enough understanding and sense to know how to treat other people. It's not that hard. The problem is, it's really difficult for people to let go of themselves, to let go of their greed. It's difficult. I was just sitting here thinking about the order of the things that I wanted to talk about with you guys tonight, but I think I'm just going to hop out of order here. So I'm building this. Financial guide. You know how you can be on YouTube or anything like that, and you'll see these little ads, they'll pop up, and there's a guy talking about if you join us and join this, whatever, blah, 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 you'll get out of debt and you'll get out of the rat race. And really all they're doing is they're explaining to you a pyramid scheme. I give you some money. Well, that makes you rich. Well, I don't get any money until I get you to join. You join, your money then goes to me, but a little bit goes hint to the guy that got me in. It just kind of trickles up. It's a pyramid scheme. Other times you'll see things where they'll offer guides on financial this or financial that, but the point is that they're charging you for all of that. Like, they're not going to really just tell you what you need to do. They're not going to tell you how to do the things you need to do so that you can be financially free. They want you to invest into their products, into their companies, into their business, because they're ultimately concerned about themselves. It sounds good because they potentially could be taking care of you as long as you're willing and able to go along with their rules and schemes. Point is, even though they're doing something good for the whole, their main goal is themselves. Just the same as everyone who joins into that, their goal would be themselves. It would have to be in order for them to elevate their success. So I've often looked into those things and wondered, how do you get rich without crossing the line? How do you get wealthy and become one of these conglomerate type of families that can just do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it? People can just buy and do and go and live their lives and do it righteously without crossing the line, without taking advantage of someone. And there are plenty of ways to do it. And one of the ways that I had kind of figured out how to do this thing was, first of all, I got ChatGPT helping me build this thing. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the AI stuff or the Internet of Things or whatever. Well, this isn't for you then. But I am using ChatGPT to help me build this thing. But just to kind of give you an idea of how this stuff works, when it comes to the world that we live in, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. How do you be in the world, but not of the world? How do we become wealthy and free while not breaking the laws that they set out before us, without taking advantage of somebody? How do we do all that? Well, what I've done here is I've just kind of built like the most simple and basic kind of trust plan. And what this does is it shows you how these wealthy people in the world that you know of and hear about, how they generate their wealth. It's not the same way that most of us do it. You know, most of us are taught to be independent, to go out there and make our money, save our money, and be frugal, and eventually we'll have a lot of money. And that does work for some people, but it doesn't work for every person. You know, when you take someone, for example, you take someone that makes $120,000 a year, and then you take two people that make $60,000 a year. It takes two people to make with this one person's combined income. The thing is, what it is the problem is this. Let's say you worked 1 year. I mean, if you had to work that 1 year total, the whole 52 weeks to make that 120,000. And on top of that, you're gone 5 days a week working, and you're never home. You never have time to do anything. You're always working. That's the cost of having to make that $120,000 at the end of that year. The other two fellas, they made $60,000. They're home every day. They're home every night. They're never gone, but they don't have the weekly income individually that the guy making $120,000 a year has. Well, the guy making $120,000 a year, if it's his first year to work, for example, he wants to buy a house. Well, he's only made one paycheck. So how does he buy a house? How does he build a house? Where does he get the money? He has to get a loan. Well, that loan forces that person into debt, a debt that he's now solely responsible for. What ends up happening at the end of the year, you would look back on what you have saved. What was your monthly mortgage, your expenses, and all of that, and then what do you have saved? Well, if you just started saving today and you just started your $120,000 a year job, at the end of that year, you don't have $120,000. You have a lot less than that. You might have a $2,000 or $3,000 in the bank. When you have two people, one person making $60,000 and they acquire all the debt, they assume all the debt, the other person's income becomes saved money. But also you both live off of one income. You build the other. What ends up happening, two people making $60,000 a year at the end of the year will have roughly $85,000 in savings. And that's a best case scenario, living a frugal life, not, going out and just blowing money all over the place. Point is, paying off a debt in these loans with the $85,000 a year savings, within 3 or 4 years, you could essentially have enough saved to buy your home and your vehicles and all of this and everything that you would need and want. Whereas the individual could still have all those things, but would be in debt for the next 30 years or longer. And also that they wouldn't be able to quit their jobs, not until at least until their debt is paid and they're ready to retire. Most of these people can't retire until they're around 60 something. Well, this program that I'm building here eliminates that. The problem with this program is the same problem that people will have with all those other type of programs that you will end up seeing online that they're trying to sell to you like this. I'm not going to sell this. I'm going to put this together and build this as a real guide. And I'm going to put it in a book form. I'm not going to sell it to you guys. I don't know, however that works. It'll be available. Let me put it that way. I don't know how I will get it out there to where you guys can have it. Point is, I don't want to sell this to anybody because this isn't something I want to profit off of. This is something that every person that ever sees it and utilizes the methods that I'm building in this program, they'll never have to worry about finances ever. I mean, money will not be a thing that you ever worry about. And so it won't have any effect on your subconscious decision making when it comes to choices in life. Yeah. Okay. So I see what you're talking about, Anne-Marie. No, this is not to take away from my thing with the Lord. This is something that I've been working on for years, and I've actually been plugging a lot of my own stuff into ChatGPT trying to build this. My son is in college, and we had a conversation about all this weekend. What this does is this helps eliminate some of the worldly stresses. It's no different than whenever, say, if I were talking about the driver's license stuff or sovereign citizen type stuff. I'm not gonna sit here and go through this whole guide through my series. I was just pointing out one thing I've been working on here lately. But what I'm doing is this is going to lead me to the next point of this conversation that I'm having. My goal is not money. No, that is not my goal. But this is a guide, though, on how to build a trust and how to protect your money and your assets. Really, you can do that with this. But this goal is, I'm not marketing this to you guys. I'm not trying to sell this to you guys. This is what I was trying to point out. I'm bringing this up for a purpose. There's a reason I was bringing that up. And I guess I'll just go ahead and move along and get right into that. So I don't want to work, I don't want people to be misunderstanding about whatever it is I'm talking about. At the end of the day, we all do need money, whether we want it or not. It's just the way the system in the world that we live in is designed and the way it operates. It's not something that we need to be dwelling on, but money does affect the way people's decisions are made. When it comes to money and whatnot, we value things today based on what we're told they're worth. Very few people are waking up going, I think this is worth this or that. It's based on what the system has already taught us and what it's told us. All I was showing with that trust plan that I had on the screen a moment ago, and the reason why I was bringing that up and talking about all that, is because we are taught to live as individuals, and especially in America or in Western cultures. And I've often wondered why that is. Why do we get taught to turn 18 and or as soon as our kids turn 18, to kick them out and let them go out there and face the world all on their own? Why do we not stick together as families? As a plumber, I've done a lot of work for a lot of different families, a lot of different individuals. And the ones that I see doing the most, as far as having the nicest homes and being the most successful, are usually the ones whose families stick together. And that's something that I've always desired, was my own family that stuck together. And sadly, I don't have a family like that. I have a family that's scattered out here and there and they're all around, but I don't have a loyal family. I don't have someone I can pick up and say, hey, look, Anne-Marie, let me show you. You see this right here? This is a guide. This is to help you understand me and you. We don't have to be in debt. If you're my sister, this would be in real life. I mean, just be me trying to present this. And in just a couple of years, we can be retired. We can have millions of money, dollars coming in. We don't have to worry about money no more. We can focus on other stuff. No, we can't do that. We don't want to do that. They don't want to ever do it. And the reason they don't ever want to do it is because everybody's selfish. And not everybody, but inherently we're greedy. And I don't mean, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but for example, I can show someone like my brother, you make $1,000 a week. At the end of the week, you got about $100 left over if you save. A lot of times you don't have anything left over. This program allows you to have $300 left over every single week. The problem is he doesn't have the control over it. Because he doesn't have the control over it, it's hard for him to see the value in it. Because the control is still out of his hands. But it's out of my hands too. It's within the rules and the laws of the program. The point of all of that is to say that we don't work together because we're too worried that you're going to do better than me, or that you might have more than me, or that I might not be able to get the things I want to get because you don't want to do it. Or I might not be able to do what I want because you don't want me to. There's always that in the back of people's minds. All of that has a source though. And I've struggled with this, and I've struggled with this, and I've struggled with this. Where does all this come from? Why are we like this? When we go back to the old books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, when we're in Genesis talking about the Noah's descendants, when we're in Jasher talking about all of those descendants, those people, Ishmael and all of those people, what we're not understanding, what we're not seeing when we read the Testament of Joseph, Testament of Asher, of Gad, of Naphtali, Dan, Zebulun, Issachar, Judah, Levi, Simeon, Reuben, Benjamin, Joseph. By the way, these are apocryphal books. These are really neat books. We're going to go over these in just a minute. But when we read about these genealogies, we're not really putting ourselves in their shoes. We're just kind of brushing over them. And where is this that I wanted to pull up? Let's see, which one is it? All right. So a lot of you know that Abraham had a wife named Sarai, and they ended up having a child named Isaac. But before that, he had a child named Ishmael. Well, one thing that doesn't get expounded upon in the Genesis version within the Holy Bible is the fact that Abraham had 6 other sons. So he had a total of 8 children: Isaac, Ishmael, and then 6 other kids from a woman named Qatar. Well, the reason that's important, maybe it'll be better if I just show it this way. This is why I was bringing up that other thing, the money trap. So, all right, let me pull this up over here. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that, all right, let me pull my timeline up. Where are we? This is where people they get lost with trying to decipher scripture. Like, what does it mean? How do we interpret it correctly? Like, how do we read this stuff and know that what we're reading and the way we're reading it and what we're teaching to others is correct? Well, we don't know how to place ourselves in their shoes because we're also taught a false history or false version of what life would have been like during this time period. During this time period right here where this red line is, we have, all right, so let's go back. This is when the flood happens, where this deep red line is. And on the left side is Noah's born, but he doesn't die until he gets to the right side of this big red line. So he doesn't die until after the flood. A lot of you, like me, have seen plenty of post-apocalyptic movies, a war-torn world, a devastated world, a nuclear holocaust, or whatever. I don't understand why we have a hard time seeing it this way, but when these people... Let's see if I can create a new layer and draw on this. Okay, good. So when these people right here were born, when they came into the world, and these are just the line of Shem, you got to understand also that there's not Nimrod, but Ham and Japheth. You have Ham, Japheth, and Shem, all 3 boys having children. These names in my timeline here are just the line of Shem. You also have the line of Japheth, and you have the line of Ham. Also, from this same line, I don't have their names on here because they're not from the line that I'm working on, King David. But you have around this era, around 2,100 years after the flood, or after Adam, so to speak, you would end up that's when you'll have Ishmael come into the scene. You have Ishmael right here, Isaac, and then of course there's 6 other brothers. Now the reason that's important, and the reason I called this Kings Without Crowns, is because all the people that you're up against in this world, as far as being able to live in this world without having to pay taxes. Well, let me rephrase what I'm trying to say. In order for you to live in this world, you got to live in this world according to the rules that the men around you have established for you to follow. If you don't follow those rules, you either go to jail or you don't get the things you want to get. You'll end up homeless on the streets or whatever, wherever. There's not too many places outside of city limits that you can really go and be homeless. Real talk, because there's somebody owns just about every piece of land out there. You'll be trespassing. So it's only in public areas that you're allowed to even be homeless. So and even in that case, sometimes it's a tough situation. The point is, you're up against people that are not individuals. You're not up against a guy named Rev who has amassed a fortune, and that one guy is worth billions of dollars. You're not up against Elon Musk, is what I'm trying to tell you. You're not up against Ishmael or Jacob or Isaac. You're not up against the guy, Israel. You're not up against Donald Trump. You're not up against Putin. You're not up against Netanyahu. We're not up against these individual people. When we're being taught this stuff in churches and whatnot, they miss this part here that we're discussing right now. And they miss it because it doesn't go along with the history that we're taught in school. The other day, and I say the other day, a few weeks ago, I was actually, before I went blank and missing from you guys, I was trying to build episode 2 of my Lines in the Sand, and what I wanted to do it on was the topic that Esau subdued the sons of Japheth. I wanted to kind of go into that and expound on that. The problem was I couldn't find it. I read through this whole thing. Right, if you can see all these tabs up here, a lot of them are all just Jasher, just different versions, or like different copyrighted versions of Jasher. And I cannot find it. I cannot find where it says that. In fact, it actually says, it says that the sons of Jacob defeated the sons of Esau. So the whole idea that Esau would have somehow conquered them, it just doesn't fit. But what that did, though, is it did make what I had been studying in the New Testament make a lot more sense. And so I'm not sure if I experienced a Mandela effect. I'm not sure if they changed it and it used to say what I remembered it saying, or if maybe I misread it and I just remember it wrong. Because I had at one point like 6 different versions of Jasher up here, and I had skimmed through every one of them, and I could not find, for weeks, I just cannot find where it says that. So it either didn't ever say that, or I misread it. Or it did say it, and it's been changed. It could be the Mandela effect with that. But that did change some stuff, but because of that change and because of that reading, it got me, I got to reading, and I got into this part here. This is talking about Ishmael and his sons. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, being 12 princes, according to their nations. And the families of Ishmael afterwards spread forth, and Ishmael took his children and all the property that he had gained, together with the souls of his household and all the belonging to him, and they went and dwell where they should find a place. All right, so this really stood out to me. I went back and I read back and I kept looking and I kept looking, and how are they princes? When did Ishmael become a king? Like, what did he do? You know, we can look over here in Samuel and we can read about David. We can go over here and read about Noah. We know he accomplished a good bit. We can read Samuel, and we can read about, you'll learn how Saul became king. And then David killed a giant and he became king. I mean, so they did something noteworthy is what I'm trying to point out here. But he didn't do anything. He just simply left his home, wherever he was at, wherever he had been raised, right, with his mother and absent father. Then he goes off. He ends up having 12 sons, or I don't know how many sons he has. Hold on, what does it say? It said, well, it doesn't say exactly how many there. But regardless, the point is he has a bunch of children. And maybe it did say 12. But he has 12 sons, or these sons, and they become princes. And it just dawned on me. If there was a big event and every person in the world was gone, besides me and 12 of my sons, I could call myself a king and I could call them princes. But that's just a title. Ultimately, I would still just be the head of my household. When it comes to Ishmael and these princes, people will get lost in these words and I idolize them. This is something that I pointed out before when we went over other parts of the Bible and scripture and stuff. But in here, Ishmael talking about his family, his sons, they become kings. They become princes. Those princes are going to have children, which would have been Ishmael's grandchildren. They're going to grow up calling him a king and thinking of him as a king. As their little group grows, they'll have a kingdom. You know, this prince will be a king here. This prince will be a king here. Eventually, they all become kings, especially once Ishmael dies. This is how that works. But they're not kings in a divine way. It's a royal bloodline now. So what I'm pointing out is that this is where your people like in Saudi Arabia come from, where you'll have these sultans and these Arab kings. But how do they become kings? They become kings as a title. It's just a title. In some way it does represent nobility, but that nobility and whatnot, that all that comes from their, like, it's self-appointed is what all I'm trying to tell you. It's not God. God didn't make Ishmael a king. What he does say is that from his line will be a big, a mighty people. They will have a lot, and that there will be kings among them. He's telling them there will be kings, but that's not God saying, go make yourself a king. God is not calling Ishmael a king, and he's not calling these kids of his princes, although he is. For example, I'm calling them a prince, but I'm also telling you that they're a prince of what? All that means is that they're the heir to Ishmael. Ishmael is a king, but a king of what? He's not a king of me. He's not a king of you. He's a king over his family. He's the king over his sons. Ishmael's going to pass away. His sons are going to come up. Well, if they do what life is leading them to do, let's say he has 12 sons, all 12 of them are now kings. Their sons are princes. And if 12 times 12 times 12, 12, if all 12 sons each have 12 sons, that's 144 princes. You started out with 12 princes. Now he has 144 princes in the line of Ishmael. Well, those princes will have kids and so many kids, and eventually it'll get so diluted out that they'll have to be tighter and tighter with their line to keep it in the family, so to speak. It's going to spread out. You'll have to prevent other male seeds from entering your line so that you don't corrupt your line. You could bring in women from other families, but bringing in men from other families, it would hurt the royalty of your line. Well, that's how these kings today have formed and developed. They've established themselves as kings in the same manner that these people we're reading about when we're reading about the genealogies of these folks. When we read about Noah's descendants, and we read about Israel and Joseph and Benjamin and Jacob and King David, when you get into First Kings and Second Kings, a lot of those so-called kings are simply people who have established themselves as a king in this area or that area. This world that they live in, the descendants of Noah, that time that all of this is taking place, it's a post-apocalyptic world. Everything's been destroyed. Everything is gone. The world has been laid waste. It was flooded and destroyed. But there are remnants. There are buildings that remain that you might would find tools and other items, relics and whatnot, so to speak. All the sons of Noah, Ham and Shem and Japheth, their sons, as I just showed you, how easily they just went from 12 to 144 plus 12, so basically 160 people with just in 2 generations. Those children are growing up being taught about God, about the world before the flood, to the best of their parents' abilities. But here's the difference. Shem and Noah, they stay together until Noah dies. Japheth separates, goes his own way. Ham separates, goes his own way. They're still going to teach their children whatever Shem is teaching his children. But they each have their own perspective on what happened, what led them to having to be on an ark, what led to the flood, what led to the world that they're in, and the place and position they're in life. I'm explaining that because that's where a lot of these old texts get mixed up. Like people will read different versions of what happened, so to speak. It's where all these different tales of the flood come from. All it is you'll have families, they separate and they divide, but they want to keep the story going. They want to keep the knowledge going of their history. While they're doing it, while you got one guy up here in this land, you got this guy over here in this land with his family. They're both related, but they're not talking every day. They don't have cell phones. They don't have internet. They don't have vehicles. They're not traveling around like that. So you would have several generations that would come and go that never even cross paths. These people never even see each other. When it comes to a lot of those kings that we read about, it's not real kings like King David. King David is the king because God appointed him the king of Israel, the king of his people, of his chosen people. Saul was king because he was appointed by God to be the king of God's chosen people. Jesus was appointed to be king of all people. Not just a handful of people, not just a small group of people. And that's why people like Netanyahu and those weirdos over in Israel want to call people like me and others anti-Semitic. It's why people can't stand that, because they can't stand Jesus. Because Jesus is the king of everybody. But Jesus, in his kingdom, operates very similarly, like I was explaining how that trust works. As long as you're doing good and I'm doing good, we're both going to be doing good. But if I'm doing good and you're not, but I'm trying to balance it for both of us, then I'm doing all the work. Well, it's the same way in the world that Jesus would try to build for all of us. How we treat each other, how we are to our neighbors, how we think about people, and how we react and respond to those around us. It's how you love your neighbors. And that's another point I wanted to bring up was that people don't understand even the very simplest things that we should be understanding. And it's not our fault necessarily. It's the way we're all raised. It's the way we're taught. When it comes to love, men are very, it's very different from men. And for women, it's very different for women. And sometimes it's not any different. It's the same depending on who's raising you. But when it comes to belief and love, we often tie those two things together. We love this person so much, so we must also believe in them. Or we believe in them so much, we must also love them. But that's not necessarily right. When it comes to the Word of God, the Scripture, we're supposed to adhere to love in all things first. If I'm treating you a certain way, it should be only because I wouldn't want you to treat me any other way than the way I'm actually treating you right now. We often hide behind, as a society, things like I'm just doing my job. You'll hear the police say that all the time. The police are never guilty of the crimes and the sins they commit because at the end of the day, they were just doing their job. You as a citizen, you're not necessarily guilty of all of that because you were just doing what you know or doing what you were told or what you were taught. The point is, you are responsible for many of those actions, regardless of your ignorance of responsibility. The only way to really be lost in that is it begins with this time period. All that we're going through is just simply another reset. Right after the flood, you had a period of time where things were not bad. I mean, it was hard, but you didn't have a lot of wars and you didn't have a lot of infighting. Nimrod, by the time he comes in to the world, what they had was a group of people spread out throughout the world, and you were starting to have a little bit of chaos. Nimrod comes in and takes over, and he rules the whole world. Well, Esau kills Nimrod. After Nimrod dies, it says the sons of Japheth go to war with the sons of Ham. And then they enslave all the family members of Nimrod. Everybody's related to him. The sons of Ham become enslaved. What you're reading about is a reset. And it's not even the first reset, but it would have been the first reset post-flood. By the time Nimrod had been ruling for 2 or 3, almost 2, well, I think it was like 240 years that he ruled. While he was ruling, though, they had built massive cities. They were doing really well. They were advancing. They were trying to get back to where they were before the flood. But then they had to have a reset. Nimrod gets killed. They had to overthrow the current government and regime of the world that day. Esau's bloodline has to now take over, or at least that's what's about to happen. So as they're taking over and slowly taking over, that's a reset. Then what happens is you'll have another growth in civilization. Eventually you'll get to where you'll get Alexander the Great, and you have the Empire of Greece. And I call it an empire. A lot of people don't, but Greece, ultimately, the Macedonian from Chichim, the line of Esau, that you had, I think not Chichim, from the line of Japheth, you had the Greek Macedonian Alexander the Great. He takes over the whole world. Him conquering the whole world is what allowed Rome to exist. Rome is an idea. Just the way the United States and the West and how we view law and order, it's a system. We call it the beast system sometimes. The same beast system that we're discussing is what they were dealing with in the tribulation and throughout the New Testament. That system is Rome. It's an idea. The only way that an idea like Rome can exist is if all bodies of land, or more accurately, all the people within that land, believe in this system. For them to build Rome and for it to exist, every person on earth basically had to be a part of it. They had to be a member to it. When it comes to that system, if Alexander the Great had not conquered all of the rest of the remaining world, when he died, you wouldn't have had a person over every part of it. If, for example, let's just look at the United States by itself. Just disregard all of the rest of the North America. Just the United States. If all of the rest of the world is Rome, and we're not, how long do you think that lasts? It doesn't last very long, because that whole rest of the world is going to eventually overtake us, even if it comes to battle. Even if they have to kill a lot of us to do it, it's going to control even America. The point is, you wouldn't have an individually, just in America with its own little government. You wouldn't have the UK with its own little government. You wouldn't have Africa with its own little government, or South Africa. You wouldn't have, or the other countries within Africa. You wouldn't have had Asia. What I'm saying is you didn't have different places with different governing systems. They were all under one system, Rome. The reason they were able to get into Rome like that is because Alexander the Great had conquered every nation, all the nations of the world. Now, I had backtracked, and when you work Alexander backwards, it does bring you to Chichim, which is in the line of Japheth. The funny thing is, if you follow that line, there's a break where a man from the line of Esau marries a woman from the line of Chichim. And so, even though Alexander the Great may have a name that links him to Chichim, his male seed originated from Abraham through Esau. This is what leads Abraham to his seed to actually having dominion over the whole world, or conquering the whole world. Where all people throughout the world, all people end up being from the seed of Abraham. It's basically his seed goes into everybody else's line, and basically it's really that simple, to be honest. But the point is, whenever this happens, Esau's seed through Alexander the Great, or Japheth, however, it doesn't really matter, they take over the world. Then after Alexander the Great, you have 10 people placed in power over different areas of the world. Those guys become governors. Eventually, they become kings or self-appointed kings. Maybe not that actual individual, but his son or grandson will be the king, or the next king that you read about. And the reasons that is, it's the same reason that if, for example, Donald Trump's just a president, and that's all he's ever going to be is our president. But let's say the world went into crazy mode next few weeks, and something happened to him, and then over the next few years, one of his sons becomes president, and then next thing you know, he's a king. He just appointed himself a king, or maybe we call him that through media persuasion or whatever. The point is, this is how these kings get labeled as kings. It's not always because God said, "Hey, you're worthy to be a king, so here you are now, be a king." A lot of these people become kings because they just are in the right place at the right time, or because they're of self-appointed measures. For Rome to be able to exist, every place had to already lead to it. It's the same way today. All over the world, everything points back to the central governance of a handful of names. But you don't know any of these people. It's just the same as when it comes to like the Waltons, for example. When I said the Waltons, your brain said, "Oh, that's Walmart." But you don't know how many people are in the Waltons family. You don't know how many children they have, how many grandchildren they have. You don't know where they live, what houses, what communities, what schools they go to. You don't know anything about the Waltons, but you kind of know of the Waltons. The point is, you don't know any of those people, but individually, all of those people are worth whatever Walmart is worth. They have a combined net worth. That's how how all of these families we're reading about in the Bible, how they all grow to become kingdoms. It's why they'll have wealthy kingdoms. I mean, you'll have some people go out and they'll have a couple sons that never really amount to much. Those sons simply get integrated into the other families of the kids and the descendants that actually do want to push and become successful. The ones that say, "Hey guys, we got plenty of time. Let's go out here and build structures. Let's go build this. Let's go build that." And then of course you'll have some that go out and don't really do much. And those individuals end up either they become slaves or they get extinguished. A lot of these names end up fading off. They disappear because they don't have any sons, or they don't have they don't have any heirs. And since they don't have any heirs, no sons, that line ends. But it's important to mention some of these lines and names, even in study and in research, because you'll learn things like when people say, "Well, Alexander the Great came from Japheth," you can say, "Well, that's arguable." On one hand, yeah, he does. He wouldn't be here had Japheth not existed. But on the other hand, he wouldn't be here if Shem hadn't existed either. You needed both of them. The point is, and I keep saying that, the point is, but there's several points in this. When it comes to these lines of nobility and royalty, especially even like today, that doesn't mean anything. It's not real. It's an idea, and it's an idea thought that goes along with the system that we live in, the system that we're a part of, the one that we're born into and taught to be a member of it, taught to be a part of this system. We're not taught to be separate from it. We're not taught to go out there and think for ourselves and ask questions. When those people come around, we adhere to them, not just because they're a king or whatever. We don't bow to them for any of those reasons. It's because they have money. And why does it matter that they have money? Because in the system that we live in, money affects your decisions. None of us can go out there and buy a yacht tomorrow if we wanted to. None of us reading or watch or listening to this. Some of you might. I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone, but most of us can't just go buy a yacht tomorrow. But like these other fellows, they might can. And because of that, their thoughts are shaped by that ability to do that. Just the same as my thoughts are shaped by my inability to do that. I'm not thinking about a yacht because I can't afford one. So I'm not worried about that. It doesn't affect me. It has nothing to do with me. However, if I could afford one, perhaps, maybe I would be thinking of one. Me personally probably would never be thinking about a yacht, but that's the point I'm making, is that as we go out into this world every day with the understanding that, yeah, it's not right. Yeah, there's some stuff going on. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, it's tough. How do we navigate through it with love? How do we love the people that don't seem to love us? It's by understanding that all these names, all these lineages, all these titles of nobility and royalty, none of that matters. It's all good to understand. It's all good to learn, but none of it matters. Not any of it. Because by the time we get to Jesus Christ, all of that is gone. All of the issues that we had to worry about as far as who are you one of God's chosen people or not? Well, that's up to you now. It's no longer up to whoever your parents were or whoever your father was. It doesn't matter if the line of Japheth is here or the line of Ham is here or Shem or all three of them or none, or if they're all mixed or not mixed, separated, segregated or not. None of that matters anymore. Whether Donald Trump is the last president and rules our kingdom of America, or King Charles somehow wakes up and decides that he's going to take over the rest of the world. None of that matters. It should matter to us. The problems is that the reason these people and these societies of families and these secret governments and whatnot that actually run our world will continue to be able to get away with the things they do that are bad and wrong. The reason why the people that you're faced with in your daily commute to and from work are out there making the decisions they're making, thinking the way that they're thinking, is because they don't understand all this. They've added value to their lives by the fact that someone said that they have this much money in their bank account. So they've taken that money and they say, oh, I'm wealthy. So they've allowed it to, I hope I didn't disconnect. It says I'm disconnected. I'm reconnected. The point is they're adding that value to themselves, but also applying that same value to everyone else around them. When you see that fella pull up with his turban on and he's a sultan and whatever, he's a oil prince of whatever country, we would treat him differently than we would treat someone standing beside us at a red light talking about, do you have $1? We would treat them differently, not just because of the position they're in, because the way they look, the way they act, and the way that they are coming to you. But that's a biasness. That's what that is. It's one of those things Brian was talking about the other day. We all have biases. Treating that person who's poor and it's on the side of the road trying to get your attention, trying to get $1 from you differently than you would treat the sultan is not Christian behavior. Yet the entire world does it. No one, hardly, is going to treat Donald Trump the same way they would some crackhead that they know comes to the same gas station every morning. Everybody's going to treat each other differently according to how well you're doing within the world around you. What Jesus was ultimately trying to teach all of us and trying to explain to all of us is how to love everybody. And this is something that I struggle with. Hardcore, I struggle with this. I'll get out there on the highway and I'm driving, and I can't help but think, man, what an idiot. All right, dude's a retard or whatever. Or why are you doing that? Getting upset by the way someone else is driving around me. I have to remind myself constantly that that person is not even thinking about me. But that's a sad thing that I have to remind myself of, because we should be thinking about everyone, especially those around us. And I don't mean that we should be worried about people we ain't never met. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying about how we should be worried about everyone is, when I get out there on the highway, I'm concerned about all the people around me, and I don't want to drive erratically or do anything unsafe that's going to harm any of them. But I also don't want to hold any of them up, and I don't want to, try to be in front of them talking about, at least I'm doing the speed limit. Why are you on my bumper? But they also should be that same way. And if they were that way, I wouldn't have any stresses. I wouldn't be on the road thinking, oh God, I got to go sit in traffic. I wouldn't be worried about it, because everybody in traffic's treating me the way I want to treat them, or I would treat them, and vice versa. If everyone loved me the way I love them, I can't say that we'd all be doing well, because I don't feel like I love everybody the way I should. But I do know something is true. I know that if we loved each other the way Jesus loved all of us, whether I know you or don't know you, whether you know me or don't know me, whether we've ever crossed paths or not, we wouldn't have any problems. There would never be a time or a situation where I'm going, road rage. Like, what is road rage? We don't have that. If we could love each other. And this is the thing that blows my mind, is that I know a lot of people that love Jesus. I mean, they love Jesus, but they don't love anybody else. and I'm not sure that they love the right Jesus. Because there's only one deity that I know of that wants you to love him and not anyone else. And that's Satan. Whether it's God real or Satan's plural and you're individually a Satan, doesn't matter. It's not from God. If it's not from God, then how can their love for Jesus be the same? And how can it be right? How can it be the same Jesus that my love is for? I wanted to bring up all of that and explain all of that and show you all of that, because when it comes to the little season, we're often correcting each other on how to behave and how to treat each other, how to talk to each other. When we go in other people's channels and their live streams, and we're in the live chats and whatnot, we want to correct each other. We want other communities to know that we're just like them. We're just seeking the Lord. We're seeking truth. We want to show that the real way to know and understand and love Jesus. But some of us don't really understand it right, perhaps. Some of us get caught up and lost in authority and who's supposed to have it and who's not. And that comes from titles. It comes from views and subscriber counts and how much someone is worth, whether or not we listen to them or don't listen to them, whether we see value in someone or not. It's like Jason Jack. We all know it's Dr. Jason Jack. Well, I can go and hang out with Jason Jack at Jason Jack's house and have the same enjoyable experience as I would going to hang out at someone poor, like my own house. They don't have much. And it wouldn't bother me, but it would bother one of them. because of embarrassment or humility or pride or whatever. A biasness that comes from all the ways that we're taught to interact with the world and each other. And I'm not saying that anything bad about Jason Jack when I said that. I was just using that as an example. But that's just the way we are as a society, and the way that we get out of that isn't just by reading scripture. I hear that a lot. You need to go read it again. Well, reading it is one thing, but reading it correctly is a different thing. And a lot of us, just real talk, we're just simply not taught how to read the scripture correctly. We're not taught how to remove ourselves from it when we don't belong in it. But by doing that, we're not really made aware of how to put ourselves in their shoes. When we're reading about the genealogies of these people, when in time are they? How many years since the flood has it been? Has it been 200 years? Has it been 300 years? Has it been 1,000 years or 5,000 years? Have we even made it there yet? Well, if it's only been, say, 150 years since the flood, it's a really good bet that when they're talking about cities, they're talking about a 300 or 400 people living in a town that's really a big family. That's what they're talking about. When we're looking at time and we're 1,000 years past the flood and we're talking about a city, well, that's a different, totally different scenario. That could be a city of multiple families, and it could be a city of different proportions. How do we separate, ourselves from that? And then when we look at that, why does it matter that we absolutely understand what it was like for them? Because the positions they're in life affects their decision making today. I talked about a money plan for about 5 minutes and it upset people. It's 2025. Money is everything when it comes to the world around you. It's not everything to me, and I know it's not everything to you guys, but to the other people outside of our community, to the people who are not the Christian way that we want to be, the money is important to them. They want money. When you want to eat a hamburger, that guy that just cooked that hamburger, he doesn't mind giving you that hamburger, but he wants you to give him money for it. Everybody wants money because it's necessary. Because it's but it's only necessary because of the system we live in. The system depends on it. It depends on your need and desire for that money. It won't work without it. And so it's not a thing where I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk about money. We need money. But if you have $0 in your bank account and you got 1,000 or $1 million in your bank account, and one of your friends wants you to come visit, but they're in another state, well, you may have to wait a while to make that decision if you have $0 in your account. But if you have millions of dollars in your account, it might not be a big deal. You go tomorrow, or I'll see you in a few hours. The point is that your decisions are affected by the system of governance that you're living in. Within the genealogies that we read about through Scripture, post-flood, up from Noah up to Nimrod, was only a couple hundred years. So you wouldn't have had a financial influence on people's decisions. It would have been a different influence. Their influence would have been control or power or leadership, for example. And how do you gain control or power when money's not an issue? If the world was destroyed and everybody in chat and all of us were the only people left on earth, none of us care about money at that point. But if Kulta Khan wants to be the leader of our, ragtag group, How do we decide that he's the leader? And how does he decide that he's the leader? How do we make that decision? How do we come up with that? Maybe he is the best person to be the leader. Maybe he isn't. And let's say he's not. And Trey's dojo is ready to be the leader. And if that's the case, then Trey's dojo and Colts Con, maybe they gotta go out on the hill and duke it out and figure out which one's going to be the leader of our group. You know, maybe we decide we don't want men to be the leader of this group. And we put Miss Wendy in charge. Point is, money don't matter, not at that point. But now, once time has gone by enough and these little communities of families grow and build and they become massive in major cities, that's when other ideas and concepts come in. Because just be real, if you were about 200 years old, you would have great grandchildren that you would just never know, possibly. They would be spread out and scattered out. All these families would grow, the cities would grow. Now you got to figure out a way to get all these people up out of bed to go do stuff for you. How do you convince them to do that if they have everything? If everybody has a home and everybody has food, why would they come work for you? How would you get them to work for you? And if you can't convince them to work for you, you got to give them a reason that does convince them. What is that reason? Well, here's money. We don't need money. We don't want money. Well, what is money? That doesn't do any good. So, well, okay, that doesn't work. So you start fighting with people. Maybe you create problems. Maybe you whisper this into this person's ear and whisper into that person's ear. Next thing you know, this person's mad at that person, and you're creating issues. You're creating chaos. And within that chaos, you give them order. You give them a solution. Hey, guess what? We got this money thing, and it'll solve all these problems. Eventually, they adhere to that. But that doesn't come about until the establishment of Rome. Up until Rome, yes, in certain areas, in certain cities, in certain places within the world, money was important. It was a way to trade. It was a way to do commerce. It's a way to do business. But you had other places throughout the world where money wasn't important. For example, among the tribes of Israel, money probably wasn't as a major factor. And I'm not talking about the ones that were around Jesus' time. I'm talking about your very first groups of Israelites. But money was still an issue because you had other places that had developed by then, like Egypt, and the ones that come from Greece across from the Aegean Sea. The point is that you would have all these different groups of people developing social systems, and these systems are of control, and they're different. The Assyrians, they had their way of governing. The Philistines, they had their way of governing. The Canaanites, they had their way of governing. Everybody has their own little way. Before all that, everybody had Nimrod's way. Well, that reset took place, and now everybody has their own individual way. Then comes someone like Alexander the Great, and he takes over all these kingdoms, and he says, all right, y'all going to do it my way. Well, we don't like kings in this world, apparently, so that dude dies. Now we have governors who eventually become kings, regardless that we didn't want kings. They still become kings anyways. But now the whole world is under the same system of governance. So it doesn't matter if you're a German or if you're an Irishman. It doesn't matter if you're from Italy or from Bolivia. It doesn't matter if you're from South America or Australia somewhere. It doesn't matter where you're from. You're all part of the same system. Well, that system collapses. It's the little beast that it's the wound that heals itself. I mean, who can make war with the beast? If all roads lead to Rome, that makes sense to me. That the beast is that system. It's that idea of thought. that it's the way they govern themselves. And we're imitating that same system today with the way the world works today. It's the same system that they operated Rome under. All roads lead to Rome. But today, Rome is not ruled over by a singular emperor. You don't have Emperor Nero or Emperor Donald Trump in charge of our world today. That system is still ran by an individual, though, guaranteed at least one, but it's fair to say a handful of individuals. That's these families, these big families that have generational wealth gained through their combined incomes that they've generated, whether it was through hard work or theft or any other way, it doesn't really matter. The growth in their financial success and has led to the wealth in their families allows them to make these decisions. At the end of this day, there's no one person in charge of the world. The Waltons, they're just as much in charge of the world as Elon Musk and his family. And they're just as much in charge of the world as the Rothschilds. But the Rothschilds are just as much in charge of the world as any other major family. It's all these families that are in the world, all are participating in the controlling, in the governance of society. Yes, there are 13 families that go way back, but those 13 families don't just alone run everything. It's a combined effort. It's regular people like you and me who one day figure out how the system works. We work it until we benefit from it, and we are big enough to control it. The problem is most people don't make it that far, not individually. That's why you don't have a whole lot of people like Elon Musk running around. While we know Elon Musk has a family, his generations are not going to call themselves the Elon Musk. That's a little different than calling yourselves the Waltons, for example. Calling myself an Israelite is not the same as just calling myself a Gentile or whatever. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking that comes with the beast system, the Roman beast system that we're living in today. It's how I know that we're still in the little season, and it's how I know we're not past it. It's not the only way and the only reason, but it is a major reason. It's why I know that we're not beyond the little season. It's because I can see how deceived the whole world is. And it's overwhelming at times because I want to wake everybody up, and sometimes I feel like people aren't waking up at the speed I feel like they could and should. And it really bothers me when I meet people and I know that they understand what I'm saying and they understand the same things I understand, and I don't see them living like it. And I know it's terrible for people like me who, I'm a black sheep coming into the scene. People that do know me or knew me, they're going to really hate seeing me blossom or flourish. When it comes to doing well in life, I've got haters. But any one of us that does well in life is going to have haters. It doesn't mean that I'm special because I have haters. But I know that sometimes we have haters for the wrong reasons. We should want to have haters. Not because we want haters, but because if there are going to be any haters, we want them to hate us because we love Jesus. and we serve him well. And not hate us just because we love him, but hate us because we actually listen to him. We actually follow him. We actually love our neighbors the way we're meant to love each other. And when you do that, the world will hate you. The world will do everything it can to come against you, to try to stop you, and to try to prevent you from doing the things that would ultimately save your life and save your soul, save your spirit, which is something I want to talk about. And it's something I want to go into next. So I'm pausing, I'm taking a break from Jasher. Good Lord, there's 91 chapters in that book as it is. But I do want to take a break from Jasher. I want to pull up some stuff on Enoch on the next episode when we come back to this. But I want to talk about Enoch because Enoch does talk about the spiritual realm. But there's a lot of misunderstandings about what we're reading in it sometimes. So I kind of want to go over it and give you guys my take on it and let you guys see how I vision it and how I see it. There's a guy I want to have an interview with if I could ever get him on here. At least I thought I did. I'm not so sure if I want to interview him now anymore. But there's a guy that had popped up on my YouTube feed, and his name is Darius Wright. And he talks about outer body experiences and what heaven is actually like, because he's been there many times, so he says. And he describes it. He describes heaven and the afterlife in a way that's so familiar. It was very familiar. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but there's a thing called the psychology tapes. I don't know if this is right, if this is the right thing. Telepathy tapes. Yeah, so there's a let me show you. So there's this channel called telepathy tapes. Okay, yeah, that's right. The telepathy tapes. Okay, so what does this have to do with Darius Wright? Well, I had listened to Darius Wright. He talks about outer body experiences, and what really made me connect with what he was saying was I'm actually trying to write a book, and I'm about burnt out on this book. I'm about fed up with it, but I wanted to write this book. And the reason I want to write this book is because I want to be able to show people what I envision in my mind when I read through all of this scripture and I envision heaven, what happens, where we go next, where our consciousness goes to. This guy is explaining everything I've already written down in my book as if he's copying my book from me. And I thought that was really weird. But it was too familiar, the stuff he was saying. And so I had come across this channel here a while back. And let me show you one thing I'm talking about here. I'm not sure if this is right. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. The point is, I'm listening to this, and there's a doctor. It's like he's a psychiatrist, psychologist, something like that. And he works for the CIA, or he did at some point. And he was doing all these experiments on telepathy. And one thing they were discussing was how children on the spectrum, like the autistic kids, they can communicate telepathically. But also, he describes what it's like to go through these outer body experiences and what it's like to see heaven and to be able to float around the world and stuff like that in the spiritual realm. And as you listen to him, and then I go back and I listen to that Darius Wright fella, and in case y'all are wondering who Darius Wright is, That's this guy. So if you've seen him, this is who I'm talking about. And the point is that, so when I listened to that psychiatrist, that CIA guy that did all these experiments and the stuff that he had learned, and then you go and you listen to one of Darius Wright's interviews, it's almost like he's saying verbatim what that doctor or scientist person was saying. So what that's got me looking at him again going, wait a minute, he might not be honest. This guy here may actually not be experiencing what he's claiming to experience, because he's simply copying off of what someone else has said, and he's using this. It's the same thing as that Billy Carson. He's doing the same thing. He's basically taking credit for someone else's work and applying it to his own experience. But now he could be telling the truth. I don't know. But it is odd how he said that, like, if you listen to any interview that he's done, he sounds just like it sounds like you're listening to this right here, which is not him. This is telepathy tapes. This is people from the government being interviewed about how certain people can remove themselves from their body. And so, and I know I'm talking like it's like it's just a little thing here, but I don't know. I can't do it, but I do believe that people can do it. I do believe that people can leave their bodies. And so while I do believe in what he's talking about, I don't necessarily believe that he actually has experienced what he's claiming to have experienced. But that doesn't take away from the message. In fact, this is a really good episode right here. Okay, so I wasn't planning on going over his stuff this weekend or tonight or anything like that. Okay, hold on. So there's no sound on that. Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. This is why there's no sound.
It again.
Here we
Then
go.
that's where you get the.
I want y'all to hear this.
We can't answer those questions for our viewers.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I should have fixed that. So this is Darius Wright, and he talks about outer body experiences. Now, I don't know his affiliation to Christ. Like, I don't know if he calls himself, if he's a Christian or not. I think he is. I believe I believe he's claimed that. He doesn't say anything that, in my opinion, that's misleading as far as it's going to lead you into sin or it's going to lead you away from Christ. He falls under the umbrella that people like J Dreamers fall under. You have JT follows JC. He has a perspective on things. You have the Cult of Khan. He has a perspective on things, myself included. This guy has a different perspective on things, but it's the same understanding. We're coming from the same place. This interview he does with Inspired here is about love. It's about how everything we're supposed to do is supposed to be about love, and to love properly, to love correctly. And one of the ways to get around not loving or loving incorrectly or not loving correctly is by removing greed and the selfishness in our selfish nature. Okay, I think my sound is right, but I want y'all to hear what he was talking about here, and then that'll help me explain my next point.
Sure. Yeah, that's no problem. Yep.
So, first, for those who haven't watched the interview, I encourage you to click the link in the description so you get a good overview of Darius's life, his experiences, and what he does. But in short, Darius, what are out of body experiences for those who are not quite familiar with that term?
Okay. So out of body experiences is just a controlled near death. You are shutting down the body, you're leaving the body, your soul's leaving the body, and you are accessing back to your true state, your divinity, your home again. So when people think of an out of body, try to tear down all of what you've heard elsewhere. When you die, you go back to what's considered home. So when you come out of your body, you can access that state again. You could return to that state. You could see dead relatives. You could see the true state of who we actually are. And that's why I think it's done so well, because people, once you hear something spoken, once you hear a truth spoken, it sparks the flame within you again. That's so many are dim at the moment. Yeah. Because they forget that their true state was never lost. And when that's reminded again, then that's where you get the greatest awakening, the greatest truth, stepping out of fear, the greatest.
Okay. So this is a really good interview. I really enjoyed listening to this. So what he's talking about is consciousness. Your consciousness is who you are. I mean, that's what you're thinking right now. It's what you're taking in. It's what you're absorbing. It's what you are. You're your consciousness. And when it comes to what happens to us after we leave this world, that's really scary for a lot of people, because a lot of people are worried about their consciousness fading into oblivion. And that's something I don't think we need to worry about. I kind of tend to agree with him in that I'm convinced that your consciousness is eternal. It never goes away. So you are always aware of your existence, whether you're physical in flesh or you're a spiritual being in a different realm of reality. You're still consciously aware of what's going on. It's why you can be in the lake of fire forever and be tormented day and night forever and ever. It's why you can be with God in heaven or in the new earth forever and ever. It's because your consciousness will always exist. It'll always continue going. And there'll never be a point where you're sitting here going, oh my God, am I here or am I not here? No, you will always be aware. Once you become existence, like once you become that alive, like that spark that created your consciousness, once you become aware, you'll always be aware. And what he's talking about right now is that he's under the thought that when you die, you don't necessarily lose your consciousness, but you may not remember what led you here. It's in the reason that resonated with me is because while I may be 42 years old, it's no wonder that I don't remember being a baby. Most of us can't remember being a baby. But I can remember my first memory, and I can't remember anything beyond that. My first memory was actually the day I met my adopted mother, my parents. The day I met my mother, I think, I don't know, I'll just never forget it. I remember someone opening a door for me, and standing in front of me was my mother, bent down, smiling and laughing or smiling at me. And I looked at her and said mother, or said mom, and then ran up to her, because that's all I knew, was that was my mom. But I was consciously aware of myself and everything around me, but I don't have any memories before that. I'm not sure that I was ever conscious of my self before that. But I became consciously aware then. So I don't remember anything before that. I don't remember what it was like when I was 2. I don't remember what it was like when I was 1 or 6 months old. I don't remember. And so what he's saying is that, and that's basically what he's explaining, is that when you die, your consciousness, you are always aware of yourself, yet you may not remember how you got to where you are. And that goes into like reincarnations and stuff like that, which I'm not convinced that we reincarnate, but I'm not even convinced that we don't reincarnate. There may be some truth in that, but I don't think it is. But it is odd, though. It is very odd to consider the idea that there are a lot of people in this world that have no inner monologue, and that's kind of scary to think about. But anyways, I want y'all to hear a little bit more of what he has to say before we wrap this up.
Greatest freedom, because that's where freedom is, the other side. The freedom, you'll never capture true freedom here. And people are searching for it here. They're searching for the elixir of life here, but it's not here, it's within you. And that's what the out of body, that's what leaving your body is, essentially. That's what a near death is.
When people think of near-death experiences, they usually think of sort of involuntary experiences, like they have an accident or something happens. But you've been initiating out-of-body experiences consciously, willfully, for quite some time. How many years have you been doing this and exploring?
So all the way since a child, I was doing it to 16, and basically learning how to get control over the state is for many years, over a decade now, if not longer, of actual controlled states. Yeah.
So can you estimate how many out-of-body journeys you've been on or guided, even with others?
I always say jokingly hundreds of thousands of times, because I honestly don't have a record. I don't know. Most of the time, if I'm not intentionally doing it, they still happen all the time anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you an example, and I really wish I had someone outside of personal people in my life to validate.
I'm gonna skip forward a little bit.
And
here we go.
If you want to call it an aid, and
okay, so to just be clear, a being taking itself away further and further from source, further and further from its original divinity. Is that possible? Yes and no, because even the further away you go, you're still connected, regardless. The most evilest, wicked things can be retrieved from love. And to say otherwise is to say that love is not the ultimate force and the most unstoppable force in all creation. And then to say that love is not that, then you would say that evil is that. Evil is the most powerful force in all creation. So it's either evil is the most powerful force in creation, or love is. All
right. So basically, I just wanted you guys to get like a little bit of, listen to just a little bit of it. You guys can find him on various different interviews. Almost every interview he has, he says basically the same thing. So if you've seen one interview, you've seen all of them basically. But it's cool. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting to listen to, not necessarily to learn from, but it's good stuff to listen to, because I kind of feel like it's similar to that. Like I agree with a lot of stuff that he's talking about and the way he's describing the afterlife, which is, it was good for me coming across this, because coming from someone who's often wondered, like what it would be like to take my own life. What happens to me if I do that? What happens to me if I just die in general? And so I've often and always have worried and wondered about that. I mean, my biggest fear is that I end up in the lake of fire. I think that's my biggest fear. And sometimes I worry that maybe I worry about that for the wrong reasons, and maybe that don't matter. Maybe it does. I don't know, because I'm not God. I don't know how I don't know what parameters he's gonna use to judge me by, or what. But it was cool listening to this, because it does bring a sense of, I guess, reality to the afterlife for me. It makes sense now looking at it as though, yeah, your consciousness always exists, whether you have a body to hold it in or not. It's always there. When he's talking about things like the source, he's talking about God. That's why I'm not sure, what his theology of choice is, but it's the same concept, I think, or very similar anyways. But it's a big fear. It's one that I've had for a long time, and one that I try to overcome and work through. So a lot of my studies and research has come simply down to that, just trying to figure out that and try to understand that. So it's a fear I can do away with, a fear I can walk away from. Ultimately, I don't think it's something we have to really worry about. Even though I do, it's not something we should be worried about. It's not something we should be focused on. We're not idiots. We all know that our time is limited on earth. But it's not something that we should be dwelling on, because just because some people's time is limited on earth doesn't mean everyone is. By saying everyone's is also saying we know when Jesus is going to come back. We know when the end's going to happen. And none of us know that. And so we can't make those claims. And when we do make those claims, it's judging people in a way, and it's also accusing people. It's not something we're supposed to do. So it's a thought we're not even supposed to be. We're supposed to be as disconnected from the thought of the afterlife as we possibly can be, but it's hard not to be. Especially when, like many of us, we've gone through all the little rabbit holes and trails, and went through all the different things that have led us to where we're at today. And through doing that, we've come across a lot of information that has led us to wonder, well, what is it going to be like then? Just the same as what's tomorrow going to bring? What's tomorrow going to be like? What's it going to be like when our kids are grown? When we're all great grandparents? What's it going to be like a couple generations after I've passed on? Will my family still be doing well? I worry about those type of things, but I don't think we should. I don't think we have to. Ultimately, we're here to love each other. And if anything that you're choosing to do in life is the opposite of what you would want anyone to do to you, you're not loving right. And loving Jesus is not enough. At least I don't believe it is. I don't believe you can love Jesus with all your heart and that's all that matters. I think you have to really listen and really adhere to his words and to the gospel. You have to abide by the laws of his commandments. His commandment is to love each other. Love thy neighbor. Worrying about whether or not this guy has more than you or not, whether that guy has more than you or not. Worrying about whether or not you have control or power or authority. Worrying about whether or not this person's in charge or that person's in charge. Worrying about whether or not this person, who this person is or who that person is. If Trey knocked on my door, I'd welcome him no differently than I would welcome Donald Trump if he knocked on my door. But Donald Trump can be the president all he wants to be, but he still has to abide by my rules in my house. And I treat my home that way with anyone. Anyone that comes here, it's my rules. They have to follow my rules in my house. Well, if we really are in the kingdom of Christ, like a lot of people will say that this is his kingdom still is here. We're living in it right now. It's just a little season. Well, then we need to behave and act like we're in his house. If I went to Anne Marie's house and she doesn't want you to wear shoes in her house, I'm taking my shoes off at the door out of respect for her and her home. I respect her in her home. So what I'm saying is that if this is God's world and this is Jesus's kingdom, doesn't matter what season we're in. Doesn't matter if Jesus is here or not here. Doesn't matter if we've got a judgment coming ahead of us or if we've got a World War III coming up soon. None of that matters. What matters is how we behave within his house and how we love and how we treat each other. And do we love each other correctly? And are we loving each other the right way? Jesus Christ came to teach us love. It doesn't mean that all the other laws don't matter and all the other rules don't matter. But I get where he's coming from. If I love you the same way you love me, if we both treat each other with the exact same principle in mind, we will always be happy and we will never have problems. You won't have to worry about who is a king and who's not a king. You wouldn't have to worry about who paid what bills or taxes or whatever rules. None of that would matter. You wouldn't be concerned about those things. Just like those people right after the flood, they weren't worried about money either. But once money becomes a thing, everybody worries about it until it no longer matters. Today, we live in a system where money controls things. It controls behaviors. There are ways to live in this world and have plenty of that money if you wanted it. And there's ways to do that and still be righteous and still go to heaven, still do the things that we're supposed to do. Money's not evil. It's the love of it that is evil. Just the same as it's the love of anything outside of Christ is evil. You can love technology too much. You can love comic books too much. You can love anything too much. Anything outside of Christ is not right. So we're to love each other the way we want to be loved. That's the way we treat each other, the way we react to each other, the way we think about each other when we're not even around and they're not around. You know, that's not sitting here going, I wonder what Trish Clark's been up to, and then start, I don't know, whatever, starting rumors and stuff. We're not supposed to be that way. The only way to really truly understand that is to remove yourself from all the different systems and mechanical systems that build the system that we live in. Once we figure out how to separate ourselves from that, then we can move forward with learning new things. And that's what most of us in this community, that's where most of us are. We've already learned a thing or two. We've already studied through tons and tons of stuff. And we've chased many rabbits down many rabbit holes and opened up many doors. And it's led us to where we are today. But how do we take all of that and use it? How do we get away from all these wars and rumors of wars? How do we fix the system? How do we get people that aren't us and think like us and know the things that we know? And how do we get others to get on board? And how do we wake them up? Well, it's how we are. It's how we behave. They're going to see it and mirror that. I've complained about traffic a lot. I complain about traffic all the time. I feel like I'm a broken record when it comes to traffic and complaining about it. But I've noticed something, especially here lately. Traffic is starting to behave better. I don't know why, but I do take the same paths just about every day, the same routes to and from every day. And I try to drive correctly. And a lot of times I see people driving incorrectly, but then I'll see that they will correct themselves simply because I'm doing right. And that's just the way most people are. Most people are going to do what you're doing. So if you're doing something and it's working out for you, that's what others are going to try to do. But if what we're doing isn't working out for us, then obviously people are going to stay away from that. And usually when you do right and you follow and your heart is led by Christ, you're going to be doing right and you're going to be doing good. And if you're doing right and you're doing good, things are going to be looking good for you. And when things start looking good for you, then others are going to see that, and that's when they're going to start changing. That's how we get the future generations to be different than we are. That's how we get away from all these deceptions and all these things that distract us from Christ and the truth. We have to be able to walk away from all of that and accept that we're not the founder of this world. We didn't create it. We didn't build this. We're not here because we deserve to be here. We're here because God loves us, and He loved us before we were ever even thought of or created. Jesus came to show us that and to teach us that. And so that's why we're all here. That should be the only reason we're all here, is to seek out the truth, to find Christ if we haven't already found Him, and find all the truths that go along with it. That's why we're here. We're not here to become the next king of the world. We're not here to become the next great Elon Musk. We're not here to become Alexander the Great. We're not here for any of those reasons. We're here to love each other. And that's one thing I want to say, is that I know that you guys love me, and that's an amazing thing. It's amazing feeling to know that you guys have reached out to me and have commented and left messages for me and thought about me in my absence. It lets me know that I am doing somewhat decent in this world, especially with all of you guys. You guys are doing the same thing I'm doing. We're all learning, we're all searching, and we're all seeking after the truth. And you guys make me feel welcome. You guys make me feel loved and blessed, and I appreciate every one of you guys for being here. I thank you guys for having patience with me over the last few weeks while I've been out and about. I know you guys have been worried about me, and I apologize for making you guys worry. One thing's for certain, I'm going to do my best to follow the words of that book. This one right here. I'm going to do my best to do right by it. And in doing so, I hope I do right by all of you guys. As we continue in this series, we're going to build on, we're going to build on other things that tie into this, but I want to jump into the book of Enoch and kind of go over some things. I know, I don't know if you guys, I know a lot of you guys follow JT follows JC, but I don't know if all of you do. And if you don't, then you should. But him and Brian were talking about the book of Enoch the other day, and they had a really good discussion on it. But that's the thing. When it comes to books like Enoch, you can find audio books where someone's reading it, and you can find people talking about it. But you don't have anyone ever going through it, breaking it down the way we do with our Bible studies. And so I want to go through at least several chapters of Enoch and break it down so y'all can understand what he was really talking about, why your thought on it may actually be wrong, considering the lack of our knowledge as far as what it was like during his time. Things are always going to be, you're like, the way your version of right and wrong and what you should and shouldn't do in life is always affected by the era of time that you're in biblically. And so what I'm saying is that we should be able to understand Enoch differently than, when we go through it and break it down line after line. Similarly, how we've been doing with Jasher and with the Revelation series. I want to kind of go through it because, yeah, all of us can read it and we can talk about it. But if all of us are reading it, not reading it together, then, some of us are going to have a different understanding of this and a different understanding of that. My goal is to get everybody to have the same understanding. Whether you read it independently at home or with us or somewhere else, doesn't matter. if we read it correctly, we should all have the same understanding. Different perspectives, for sure, but the understanding should be the same. So there's some things in there that I want to break down and kind of go into detail about, because it really does help understand the deceptions of the times that we're in, the little season that we're in. So I want to kind of go through it in a way that I don't really see other people doing it, and I know that there are probably channels out there where people are breaking it down the way we kind of do it as well. I don't know any of those people, and I've never seen any of those, but I don't know. I want to do it. I want to kind of go through it and show you guys my take on it. But Enoch's not anywhere near as long as the book of Jasher or Jubilees or any of those other books. So, we may even end up going through the entire thing. But there are a lot of nuggets of truth in the book of Enoch. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It talks about his time. It talks about pre-flood, post-flood, long-term, way in the future after the flood. But more importantly, Enoch talks about this actual generation. He talks about you and me. And that's why I like it so much. But that's also because I like anything that talks about us. That's part of that little sliver of selfishness, I guess, or in me, I suppose. I'm not really sure if that's right or not, but I do. I like it because it does. It talks about us. And so it's a really good book to kind of learn from. Another good books are those apocryphal books, and we'll kind of go over that in the next episode as well. But each one of those is from the 12 tribes of Israel, and I find those books so fascinating because, like, the first chapter, most of them are like 2 chapters, so they're not really long books, anyways. But it's the Testament of Reuben, Testament of Levi, and what's fascinating, all of them talk about Jesus Christ. Every single one of them talk about Jesus Christ. So why wouldn't you want those books in the Bible? It doesn't make sense to me. Well, it's because there's a lot of information that they talk about in there that can kind of help you today figure out who you might belong to. And when you start figuring out who you belong to, then people start clinging to things like these royal names and titles and all this other stuff. It's one of those reasons I feel like God was okay with the temple being destroyed. I mean, why? You get rid of the temple, you get rid of the records, the birth records. You get rid of all the birth records, and nobody knows who they are. Then it doesn't matter if you're a prince or not, because nobody knows. How can you tell? How can we know? A king doesn't look like a king. People are just people. So all I'm saying is that it's a good book. I think you guys will like it. I know I enjoy it. I've studied it a lot, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And it does help you understand some of the points that Jesus makes, especially those points that may be confusing to people that he makes. But it's easy. It makes it easier to understand where he's coming from, because he's obviously had studied and knows what the book of Enoch says. The people of Jesus's day, a lot of them would have known what the book of Enoch said. So whether this is that actual book or not, the information in it, as far as I can tell, seems to be true. So we'll kind of go over that next round. But until then, today's Tuesday. If everything goes well, we will be back next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. And I want, oh yeah, before I leave, Miss Trish Clark, Miss Wendy, Trey, Miss Deanna as well, and Chiro, and Miles. I know you guys reached out to me. I appreciate that. And I know I've talked with some of you guys. Look, thank you guys, for real. I mean, I really mean it. Like, it means a lot to me that you guys reached out to me in my absence. It means a lot, and I hate that. I hate that, and I apologize if I made any of you guys worry. I just had some refocusing I needed to do and recalibrating with some things over here on my end. For I can, I don't know, it's just one of those things where you can't help others until you help yourself, type of thing. And I needed to get some things right before I could come back and really focus on this. So you guys, I love you guys. Thank you guys for reaching out. Thank you guys for coming back and being back here with me this evening. We had a really good turnout. I didn't really expect to see a whole lot of people here tonight, but we had a really good turnout. You guys are really amazing. Oh yeah, I have to get Discord back on my computer over here. But yeah, you guys are an amazing audience. You guys are an amazing group of people. I love that I can call many of you friends, if not all of you friends, and I love that we're a family. We're a growing family, and we're the kind of family that needs to grow. You know, we're a Christ following family, and that's the type of family we need to be concerned about. It's the only type of family we need to really be concerned about. But that being said, you guys are always, as always, amazing and awesome. You guys are a true blessing, and I'm thankful to have each and every one of you here with me this evening. Thank you guys. I love you guys so very much, and I will see y'all again on Thursday.
I saw you
We never left, just stood still long enough for the storm to pass. Truth don't sleep, and neither do we.
They dress like kings, but the throne ain't real. Claim the crown, but they never kneel. Gold don't shine when the fire breaks down. You see it now, kings without crowns. Yeah, they run their mouth, but the truth still stands. Draw that line in the blood red sand. We back again with a voice too loud, calling out kings without crowns. I took 6 weeks, now I'm back with fire. Watch the lies melt under gospel wire. They spin false timelines, shift the frames, while the saints rise up and reclaim the name. No robes here, just steel in the voice. Gave up comfort, I made that choice. Truth ain't soft and it won't bow down, so I'm back swinging at these fake gold crowns. They said sit quiet, stay in your place, but I saw the game and I know the face. They build on sand, I stand on stone, and this time I'm not alone. They dress like kings, but the throne ain't real. Claim the crown, but they never kneel. Gold don't shine when the fire breaks down. You see them now, kings without crowns. Yeah, they run their mouth, but the truth still stands. Draw that line in the blood red sand. We back again with a voice too loud, calling out kings without crowns. They preach fake hope with a polished grin, but their fruit don't grow cause the roots in sin. They trade the cross for the influencer stage, but this word I hold, it don't age. Little season, yeah, I know the code. They pave fake roads just to hide the load, but the veil is torn, the war's in view, and I came back just to speak what's true. This ain't pride, it's purpose lit. You ain't heard nothing till the spirit hits. And when I speak, I don't speak for fame, I speak for the king who already came. They dress like kings, but the throne ain't real. Claim the crown, but they never kneel. Gold don't shine when the fire breaks down. You see them now, kings without crowns. Yeah, they run their mouth, but the truth still stands. Draw that line in the blood red sand. We back again with a voice too loud, calling out kings without crowns. You drew lines in the sand. We drew the word across them, and only one still stands.